And then the princess met the knight in the forest. The dragon saw the knight. The knight visited the big forest. At least 3 tiles. We're going to come back to that one. And then the princess met the dragon. Cool. The dragon saw the princess. And the princess wanted to go to the big mountain. So we got to get her to the big mountain. We're going to skip that one too. And then the knight wanted to...
Hey, we're looking at Fairy Tile today, and we're going to start off with a look at some components and a look at some setup to start with. Here are our components. We have 3 starter tiles, and those starter tiles, we know that because they're indicated with a little tiny mark in the corner there that's white, but also it has this symbol here, which indicates that something's going to start there with this little gold crest symbol. That's really the easiest way to identify them. There's 3 of them. All the tiles in this game are double-sided. Then we have a stack of regular tiles that'll come into use during gameplay. We have 2 stacks of cards because I'm setting up for a 2-player game, but there's 36 cards. They're basically called story page cards, and we're going to give everyone an even number of those during setup as well. We have these magic tokens. Those magic tokens are going to indicate whether we've basically saved an action or not by using the 2-sidedness of them. Then the coolest component in the game, we have these 3 little miniatures here. We've got a princess, we have a knight, and a dragon. And let's get right into setup. We're going to take the 3 starting tiles. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure these little dots here match up in the corners to make a circle. So when we do that, though, we have to be careful because right there the dots match up, but the river does not. So we need to make it so the river and the dots match up. So there's the river matching up and the dot. And then if I did this right, this last tile should fit in here and match up with that river as well. So we've got a continuous river, and then that dot makes a little circle there. Then we can also see these 3 golden crest kind of tokens. This one looks like a dragon, so we put the dragon there. This one has like a shield on it, so we put the knight there. And the princess starts in the castle. That's set up. For the board, for the cards, like I said, just are going to make even stacks of cards to give everyone an even stack. So the objective of this game is we're going to try and get through our stack of cards as quickly as we can. On our turn, we basically have 2 choices. It's pretty simple, really. We either can do an action on the board or we can turn a page. And when we do an action on the board, we basically have 2 choices. So we have our stack of tiles here, and we have our characters. And what's going to happen is we're going to try and meet the objective of a card. We have 1 card in front of us. We're allowed to look at 1 card out of our stack. And if I like it, if I think I can do what it says in the stack there, then I'm going to try and get that objective. So this card says, the knight visits the large mountain 3 or more spaces. So that's going to be kind of hard to get right now because if I look, there's not really a mountain that's on the board except for this one right here. So I need more mountain tiles. Well, I happen to look here and there's 2 mountains on this tile here, and it happens to have a river. So when I'm playing a tile, there's basically 2 rules I have to follow. I have to make it continue a river, so I couldn't put it in like this and dead end the river if I can help it. I have to continue the river. And then at least 2 sides of the new tile has to touch the old tile. Well, I exceeded that. I have 3 sides touching there. So I'm in good shape. Now, that's a legal placement. That would be my turn. I didn't achieve my objective, so I don't read my card. I don't cycle to the next card. The next player would go, and let's say they want to do movement. So movement in this game is really actually pretty simple if you can just understand a few rules. The way how I think about the princess is I think about the old Mario Brothers games where they would go in the pipe and they would teleport. So she can teleport from castle to castle. So if she's in a castle, she can teleport to one other castle. She can do that once on her turn. If she's not in a castle, she can move 1 space. And that can be into a castle or out of a castle. And if she moves into a castle or out of a castle, then she can go ahead and teleport. So I'm going to say she's teleporting here. She teleported before she moved, so then she can move one space after she teleports. If she started there, she could move one into the castle and then teleport back to this other castle. So she's able to bounce around castles and move just a little bit away from the castle. Basically, just she's usually going to stick around the castles because it helps her to move around the board really fast. But moves one space, can teleport between castles. The dragon's probably the most complicated movement, and it's not tricky, really. If you look at a hex, so see where these hex tiles go together? There's a flat side there. Where that seam happens is like a line. They can't travel over that line. So when this dragon goes, it has to fly across the flat sides of the hex. So it could go this way, or it could go this way, or it could go this way. In as many spaces as it wants to, in a straight line that's perpendicular to the lines in the hexes. Can't go parallel with the lines. So it couldn't go like that. That's considered diagonal. It's leaving from a corner of a hex. It has to go across the flat sides. The knight is also pretty easy if you can remember this one rule. He moves two spaces, 1, 2, but he can never go back to a space that touches one that he was already in. So he goes here. He couldn't go here because that's adjacent to where he came from. So he goes here. He's got an option to go here because that's not adjacent to where he came from. This one's not adjacent. This one's not adjacent. That one is. So he has to keep moving forward. He never looks back. He always goes forward. He's very brave. So that's how they move. You could move one single character on your turn, or you can lay a tile on your turn. And then if that gets your objective of a card, then you read what happens on that card. So I'm going to say that it's my next turn, and the person moved the princess there. They have an objective that maybe says the princess wants to go to the river. Well, I'm going to move the knight 1, 2 spaces. And now if I look here on the board, I don't know how well you can see this, but there's 1, 2, 3 mountain spaces that are connected. Remember my objective was that the knight visits the large mountain 3 or more spaces. So I would read, the knight visits the large mountain, and then I would read the flavor text. Ulrich courageously climbed the steep summit, which hid Draxor's den. So then I would take that, and I would put that in my discard pile and draw the next card. And now I'm going to try and complete the next card. And I'm going to try and get through this whole stack of cards. If I get through my whole stack of cards, then I've basically completed the game. I've won. It's basically a race to see who can get through their stack of cards the first. The cards are going to have a few different objectives that you're going to try and do. So to visit is where you end your location. So you end your movement on a spot. So he wanted to visit the large mountain, which means end his turn on a space that's 3 mountains. The objective of see. So if they wanted to see something, it's basically you have line of sight on someone the way how the dragon moves. So right now the dragon could see the knight and the knight could see the dragon, but we couldn't see the princess. If we move the princess down here, then they can see each other. But it has to be a straight line of sight, the way how the dragon flies. Then finally, the last one's meet. So if we wanted the knight to meet the dragon or the knight to meet the princess, the way how they meet is they finish their movement on the same hex. So then they would meet each other. And so that's basically the 3 big things that are going to happen in the game for our cards' objectives to be met. Now, there's a couple other quick things to talk about. There's 5 types of terrain. There's castles, there's plains, there's forests, there's mountains, and then there's rivers. And rivers are kind of like present in other land features as well. And those are going to be referenced. The final thing I want to mention is that you have another option. So let's say I get one of these cards, I draw the top card of my deck, and it's really going to be hard for me to accomplish. Like, it's just going to be something that'll be easier to accomplish later in the game. Because let's say it's, something like this. The knight's here, and the princess is here, and the dragon is here. And let's say even we have a couple more tiles, and let's make even the knight just even a little further away yet. Like, the knight's clear over here. Well, let's say that our objective is to have the dragon and the knight meet, and it might be difficult to do that right now. It's going to take a couple moves at least to, get the dragon here and then get the dragon here or whatever. It's going to take a little work. So if I didn't want to try and do that objective, I could tuck it underneath the cards in my pile here, put it on the bottom face down. That's called turning a page. When I turn a page, I take my token, my magic token, and I flip it over to the magic side. So I can store one of my actions basically by doing that. So what happens then is on a future turn, I can do 2 actions on one turn. So let's say that my objective was to get the dragon to meet the knight, and I'm worried about the dragon getting moved back here by someone. So I need to move the dragon here, then here. Well, if I've stored an action here, I can move them here, flip this over and do a second action, and then I've met the objective of having the dragon meet the knight. So you can store actions a little bit by tucking a card underneath, going to the next one, skipping it for now, but you still have to complete that objective before your deck's exhausted, which is the whole objective of the game. It's a really pretty simple game. We're going to get back in the studio now, and I'll talk about who this game's for and what I think about it.
So that is the game Fairy Tile. Pretty cool little game. Let's break it down. Just get right into it now. Highlights, the components in this are really good. The little miniatures in there they feel like toys almost. They feel like they're just good quality. And in meeting with the rest of this game, if you look at this game from a gestalt viewpoint, a holistic standpoint, like it's very the package does really well to have the art style it has and to have the painted miniatures in it for who I think this game's for. So the components on this are perfect. I think they're just the exact right components. The cards are good quality. The art on this game is just really good. And then it doesn't take up a huge footprint in your storage. It's a nice small size box. It's the size of like a Kanagawa box or like a Little Town box if you're familiar with those. So it doesn't take a ton of real estate up in the game shelf. It's just a really good little package component wise. This game has amazing appeal for children, an amazing appeal for even probably grandparents playing with children, parents playing with children. This is one that it says 8+ in the box, and I think it says that because of the reading on it. The reading involved in this game is going to take a little work, but this is one that I think you could help and co-play with like 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, and they would love it. They would love to be able to play this game because they feel like they're playing a game. If mom and dad are into board games, they get a chance to explore that adult thing of playing board games, but then also it's going to be super appealing. The princesses and knights and dragons, little girls and boys are going to like love this game. I think they're going to find that it's just a neat, engaging, fun thing to do. And I honestly think that reading is why they probably put 8 on there. But then I also think this could help develop good reading skills. So if you have a kindergartner, first grader where they're first starting to read, get those sight words, this one's going to have pretty basic reading for the directions, words like see and meet and visit. And they're going to be able to sight read many of these words, but then you can help them. You can scaffold it, or you can do like what they call close reading, where you like basically have them read along with you. And when you pause, they read the words they definitely know. So I think this is a good teaching tool almost. I think kids could learn, and it would be highly motivational. Getting kids engaged to learn anymore is really difficult because there's just the world's theirs. And so to get them to sit down and just kind of read and get engaged in something like this is kind of difficult sometimes. And I think this game would be able to do it really well. Can you tell I'm a teacher? Like that's kind of popping out right now, isn't it? And in spite of all that stuff, so games that I think that are good with children and games that I think can develop reading skills, this one still remains a good game in spite of all that. So this is a game that I think I would definitely play it with like younger children. I think I would enjoy it quite a bit with like grandchildren or if I had younger children, I would enjoy playing it with them a lot. But even then, my son and I, my son's 16 and I'm older than that, we play it together and we enjoy it. We think it's a fun little game. It's just a cute little package. It's a neat little game. This is one that a non-gamer wife, like my wife, will play and think it's fine. She understands it. And it's just broad appeal. It's got a lot of situations where it can be played. And it's just a rock solid game. I don't think that gamers, like intense, heavy gamers, are going to hate it. I think it's something that's got a fun tiling, navigating pieces on a board. There's enough game there to keep people engaged too. So very broad appeal to this game. I think it's going to be able to be played in a ton of situations. And it's short enough that it's just a nice little filler weight game. So let's get into some numbers on this. Accessibility, most everybody can play this one. This is one that if you can read it, you can play it for sure. And I think even some kids who can't quite read the flavor text for sure, or even the instructional text could, with minimal help, have fun playing around with this game. And you might have fun introducing them to games. So I think it's going to be a really, really broad accessibility. The theme, I don't see anybody having a problem with this theme. I think it's a cool medieval theme, storybook theme. I think that if anyone has any issue with this theme, it's that it's just not appealing to them. I think that it's going to be a theme that no one's going to take offense to. It works out really well. The fun factor on this, I'm giving a 4 out of 5. I've played more fun games. This one's not bad though. It's got quite a bit of fun in it, and the first few times you play it, it is kind of neat to figure out when do I want to flip that card underneath to get my magic and really maximize the game part and try and win it. So there is game there, and that part is really fun. It is fun to see the tiles come down and see this land develop. It's fun to move the pieces around and play with those. So it gets a really good mark for fun. The replayability, I'm only giving it a 3 out of 5, which is above average, but there's just one deck of cards at this point, one stack of tiles, and you start to kind of figure out the game pretty quickly because it's just a couple actions. You do one of two things essentially. So it gets a little bit samey after a time. It gets a little bit repetitive. But that said, this game's so quick, I don't think this is a game that you're going to regret playing it or not want to play it because it's, oh man, I've played that long game so many times and it was the same every time. It might be a little bit samey and it might be a little bit repetitive, but it's so quick and it's a nice little filler and you want other people to experience it, and it's going to be such a broad appeal that I think that this is a game that you could probably just get out fairly frequently. And this is a family functions game. This is a with your coworkers kind of game. This is with kids that you might babysit kind of game. So it's going to have a lot of table time. Even if the replayability on it's not super high. The design and the art, they're perfect. I mean, like, are nearly perfect. I think that, I don't know, man. I think it's really well done. I think maybe, I don't know. I don't know what you could have done different in this, really. The box insert feels like it wastes a little bit of space, but I think they wanted to keep that standard size box. So that's that. The font is a little hard to read at times, the font they picked, but it's not bad. It matches that storybook type aesthetic of the game. So really strong marks for that design and art. Really strong. And so overall, where do I put this game at? Well, I think this game is a 4 out of 5 overall, which is a good rating. It's a rating where I think it appeals to probably 80% of people out there who own board games, 70 to 80%, and are in this hobby. I think they'd benefit from playing this game or having it near their collection. This one's inexpensive enough too, and it's going to hit enough crowds that I think this is one that I suggest for just a lot of people. If you've got small children around, if you've got, whatever, if you're a teacher, and you have a little bit of time with like primary grades kind of group, or even if you're a teacher of older kids and you need to fill a little bit of time someday or something after a test, this game can kind of fill that real estate. This is one that you could play with parents. This is one that you could play with children. This is one that you could play with your church group, your business group, whatever. So I think this one's going to have a lot of ability to be played in a lot of situations. But its most primary situation where I see it played the most and really enjoyed the most is as a family game. I think if you've got a son or a daughter who's 4 or 5 years old, this game would be perfect for you. You could get this one on there. They could learn about tiling. They could learn about movement of pieces, and you could help them out with the reading of the cards. And they could feel like they're a big kid. They could feel like they're almost an adult, and that's something kids love. They love to explore that space of being more grown and feeling like a big deal. And this is going to let them do that. And then it's also going to be something that's going to help develop reading for them too. I think, honestly, this is something that would be, a lot of my friends learned how to read because they were obsessed with like a JRPG and they wanted to be able to read the screens or something. And so this game, I think could be that kind of same thing to certain kids where they would learn to read or accelerate their reading based on wanting to read the cards. So, I think it's a family game, an idealized family game actually. And this one, I would say, man, if I had to have people ask me, if someone came to me and said, "Hey, I've got a 8-year-old kid at home and a 6-year-old kid at home," if I had to tell them what games I would suggest to them, this one would be on the short list. Obviously, My Little Side is going to probably be on there, but this one's going to be right up there with that. So I think this is an excellent game for families with younger children, and I think the strong suggestion is for that. If you've got little kids and you want something to play with them, this is the game. And if you don't have little kids and you think it looks cute and it's worth playing, there's still a lot of game there still. So I've enjoyed the board game mechanics.